Imagine a situation where you are not a service member, but somehow, you find yourself facing military authority. It sounds unlikely, right? But the question of who falls under military jurisdiction is more nuanced than you might think. Generally speaking, military law, specifically the Uniform Code of Military Justice, does not apply to civilians. Its primary purpose is to govern the conduct of military personnel, ensuring discipline and justice within the armed forces. The core reason for this separation lies in the very nature of military law. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, often called the UCMJ, is established under the authority granted by the United States Constitution for the regulation of the land and naval forces. It applies to individuals who are in the uniformed services, including active duty personnel, reservists on active duty, and even certain retired personnel in very specific circumstances. However, there are some very rare and specific situations where a civilian might find themselves subject to military law. For instance, during times of declared martial law, military courts could exercise jurisdiction over civilians, though this is an extreme measure. Civilians accompanying the armed forces in a theater of military operations during a declared war or contingency operation can also fall under the UCMJ for certain offenses. This typically applies to civilian contractors working directly with the military in conflict zones. Additionally, some former service members, even after discharge, can be subject to court-martial jurisdiction for offenses committed while they were still in the military, but proceedings would have started before their discharge. So, for most civilians living within the United States, military law is simply not a concern. Your legal rights and protections are under civilian jurisdiction. If you are a civilian considering working as a contractor in a combat zone, or if you are a family member accompanying service members overseas, it becomes critical to understand the specific rules and agreements that might affect you. Always seek clear guidance about the jurisdiction that applies to your particular circumstances. A couple of key concepts illustrate these boundaries. The Posse Comitatus Act, for example, generally prohibits the use of the military for domestic law enforcement purposes, reinforcing civilian authority. Then there are status of forces agreements, known as SOFA agreements, which are international treaties defining the legal status of military personnel and their families stationed in a foreign country. These agreements dictate whether a foreign country's laws or United States military law applies to service members and sometimes their accompanying civilians for offenses committed abroad. Understanding these distinctions provides clarity and peace of mind. It highlights that while military law serves a vital role in maintaining order within the armed forces, its reach into civilian life is carefully limited, ensuring that civilian rights and judicial processes are upheld, except in the most extraordinary and clearly defined situations.